Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jerred Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. We have the crew here, minus Ashley. Gentlemen, how's it going?
I'm back. Hi.
Yay.
Oh, yeah. Joe, you were gone. Forgot.
About time.
Man. Okay, get back down to business.
Hurts a lot worse when Ashley's gone. Just. All right, let's get into it. We have a fun study today. We've kind of already done this a little bit, but we're going to do it some more because the study was a little bit different. The name of it is Resistance Training with Different Velocity Loss Thresholds, Induce Similar Changes in Strength and Hypertrophy. I did that on purpose because the actual study misspelled strength, and I think it should be called out. Like, I mean, it's published in scientific literature and they misspelled the word, or I'm not familiar with what strength is.
They're strength people, or they're numbers people, not word people.
I mean, I could very well be the dumb one here, so I don't know. They're like, just so you know, strength, here's the definition. Anyway, let's get into it. It was 7 women and 3 men with at least 2 years of training experience that participated. They were plus or minus 4.3 years away from the age of 23. Body mass index doesn't really matter that much, but they had a mean resistance training experience of 4.5 years, and the study was 9 weeks long. And the purpose of the study was to compare changes in leg press and leg extension strength, quad hypertrophy, and rate of force development when terminating each set at either a 15% or 30% velocity loss threshold. So to put that in simple terms, when you start moving a little bit less fast or more slowly, that's when they would terminate, meaning, you're getting fatigued, you're getting tired. And I think that that's a pretty good gauge of when you're starting to lose, more specifically, your power. I've seen, and we've all seen it, in Garage Gym Athlete group, people posting 1 rep maxes that are painfully slow. And if you see a max like that, you have a max like that, what you need to work on isn't necessarily your 1 rep max strength anymore. It's your power. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that. You need to become more powerful to become a stronger athlete. I've written about this for years. I've talked about it for a long time. Just the missing element in people's strength program typically is speed. And that's why I really like this study overall. So this study had a within subject design. So each participant served as their own control. The 10 subjects trained the leg press and leg extension twice per week on non-consecutive days. Like I said, one leg terminated sets with when it exceeded 15% velocity loss, and the other leg terminated sets after achieving a 30% velocity loss. I don't think I need to get too much more into it. We can talk about the programming a little if we want. It seemed pretty solid. They did do leg press and leg extension. Not our favorite movements here at Garage Gym Athlete, but from a scientific standpoint, those are pretty decent. They're not on the Smith machine, and they are able to measure things a little bit better when they're using these pieces of equipment. And that's all I'll get into. Gentlemen, what did you think of the study?
So my first thoughts this is happening in a couple of different studies, but having 2 different lifting practices or loads for both your different legs is just gross to me. I find that so awkward and weird when they do that. I guess they're really trying to compare within the same person, but like I would never volunteer for something like that. Um, but other than that, they had the people that they trained for 2 years. I didn't really specify for how much training or what resistance training they did before. And yeah, this is just another case of reps in reserve or not training to failure can be good. So to me, that's for intensity, for people that need to not be as intense with their training or go as intense, then this is definitely something to adhere to with your training in general, and the fact that you just don't need to. I liked that in the study they made volume the same across
Yeah.
all domain or whatever. So like even if one group that was doing the 15% or the 30%, they still equated it out on their, I think, on their last set or something, so that total volume was the same. So they can't say, okay, well, this one did better because they did more volume. Well, they took that out so that it's still equated to the same results. I think for applying this for athletes and such is how they were doing it when a lot of these studies, when they did the reps in reserve, usually the reserve marker is the velocity change. So this one was 15 and 30. Other ones have been up to 50. So even in your own training, I mean, you're not going to be able to know exactly percent wise when your velocity changes, but when your form is breaking down, when you start to feel it going slower, usually you can tell, 4, 5, 6 reps, they're all the same. But right when you start to have that, little bit of a sticking point, you're still moving, but it starts to slow down. Maybe another rep after that, and you call it quits for that set. And I think that's how it can be applied to our athletes, and more so for accessory work instead of like, because strength is usually, you're set on your percentages, especially if you're going heavier. But accessory work, judging your velocity and using this reps in reserve is a great thing to know that you don't need to go to burnout, and the accessory work that you do, especially if you adhere to a certain velocity point, then you're gonna be just fine. So there's more science to back up all that. And lastly, there were some other studies that were compared, and a few of them had concurrent training studies mentioned. And even in the concurrent training studies that did the max effort sets versus reps in reserve, results are still the same. So even concurrent training will be just fine with the reps in reserve method. But Kyle, what you got?
So yeah, I agree with everything that you said, and I think reps in reserve is a great tactic for Gresham athletes to use, especially since it's kind of hard to track your velocity. It's kind of hard to track your bar velocity, things like that. Unless you have the technology to do that, it's kind of hard. And so instead of doing that, just say, well, I feel like I have 5 reps left. That's where I stop, and things like that. So that, I think that's a really good indicator. And also another indicator, like you said, Joe, is if your form starts breaking down, that's a good time to say, okay, which we say that all the time anyway. When we get to a point, especially in our Meet Yourself Saturdays, we're like, hey, you're supposed to push yourself. It's going to be more intense, those kinds of things, but we still want you to be really mindful of your form. We want you to be mindful of your technique. We don't want you to be hurting yourself by just trying to go hard and go fast. So anyway, I would also say I would like to see a study of it, and maybe some of the other, I didn't really look at the other studies that we had in the breakdown, but I would like to see if it translates to other movements besides just the legs. I would like to see, can we do like shoulder presses? Can we do bicep curls? Can we see the same kind of stuff in other movements besides on the leg press, things like that? That's the only other thing I would say.
Yeah, so you don't need to run the rack anymore for your curls.
Right.
Travis?
Yeah, cool. No, I agree with both Joe and Kyle. This study reminded me of another book that I'd read, and this was well before I joined GGA. But it was like Pavel Tsatsouline. He's the kettlebell guy, I guess. He had a book called Naked Warrior that I read, and basically it's for people that don't have a gym set up, but it's just the grease the groove method, like all day. So you're never really training to failure. You're always just popping out, a few sets here and there throughout the day. And it kind of reminds me of our push-up grid that we like to do as well. You're just building that constant, I guess, successful movement. And he calls it a practice more so than training. And I think that's kind of what, that's kind of what we're getting to, is that you don't have to kill yourself during every workout. It's more of you're teaching your body to lift this thing properly. And the more so that you do that, in getting closer to failure, the more so that, you're gonna like either get injured, or you might start training some bad movement patterns. So that was just reading through the study, that's what that reminded me of. And finding ways, I guess, to get good solid movement without breakdown of form is going to be your best bet.
Yeah. So just to kind of highlight some of the study, again, they were looking at strength, hypertrophy, which is muscle growth, and rate of force development. There was no change in the rate of force development really in either group, but strength and hypertrophy in both groups increased at about the same amount. So I want to make it very clear that training to failure is not bad as far as results are concerned. Right. It's actually right on par with going a little bit less than that full failure. So I want to make sure that that's clear. It's not that one's better than the other, but it's just more of a surprising thing to find out that training with reps in reserve or a little bit less hard than you absolutely can will result in the same results when we're looking at muscle growth and overall strength, like 1 rep max, which is awesome. And one thing I say all the time is try harder, but this is actually the science of trying less hard. And, it's the combination of both that I think that we need. Because I think if you are someone who is chasing a 1 rep max, or you're a power lifter or something like that, you're going to have to just see what those feel like, that 90%, that 95%, that 100% on the barbell. Like you just need you need to feel what that stimulus is occasionally. But this should be very comforting for people looking for strength or muscle growth gains and realize, hey, I don't have to go that hard and I can still see all the same results. So just know which camp you're in. If there's no real reason for you to get above that 1 rep max, then you're fine. And I know that we chase 1 rep maxes for like PR shirts and all this other stuff, but to a point. And this is always what I want to get across to the athletes. Like my back squat is in the competitor level, like a lot of my lifts are, and I'm just good there. I might even be 100 pounds better than that in some of those lifts, but I don't care. Like I'm not chasing my deadlift getting to 600 or 700. I'm not on this continuous path for PRs. There's just a certain strength level that I want, and that's where I want athletes to get to. Be like, hey, I want my squat in established, and I'm happy if I'm in established, or I want my deadlift in established area, which is just an area we have in training. If anyone's unfamiliar, we have a bunch of different parameters for these things. And I'm okay with it being there. Like that's where I'm satisfied. I'm no longer chasing something bigger and better. And so I want people to kind of take, there's a PR mindset, but then it gets out of hand real fast. And it's not necessary to always train as hard as you can. The actual conclusion from the study said performing velocity-based resistance training with low and high velocity loss with equal training volume resulted in similar effects in maximal and explosive strength in addition to muscular adaptations. So just kind of what we're saying, but it has a lot more to do with your velocity. If you've ever done 1-man-1 barbell EMOM, so every minute on the minute, you'll be very aware of when you lost your velocity. Like it happens to somebody. Like if we do 4 reps of every minute on the minute for 10 minutes, maybe it's like minute 7, you're like, I'm not moving anywhere near as fast as I was minute 1 and 2. And that's where you've lost that velocity and you're just kind of putting in junk volume after that. But the goal is to try and move fast through all of those repetitions. So overall, all my takeaways, I have a few listed. 1, don't skimp on volume. You still need to put in the reps. Just because you can go with a few reps in reserve doesn't mean this is easy. If you actually look at some of if you were to equate this out to percentages of 1 rep max, we're talking about instead of lifting at 90 to 95%, we're lifting at 70, 75, 80%. Those are still hard percentages. This isn't like oh, I can just lift at 30%, but match volume and everything's going to be the same. We haven't seen any literature that aggressive yet. It's like they're relatively close to the same, but one's just a little bit less hard than the other. So don't skimp on volume. Second thing, lift fast. So have dynamic efforts in your program. If you follow our programming, you'll be fine. We program things like that. Don't judge a workout by how spent you feel. That's a horrible marker of whether or not you had a good training session. And leave some in the tank while you're actually training. It's okay to not go all out. And so that's kind of my main takeaways from having read the study and just our athletes in general. How would we encourage the athletes to kill some comfort with this information today?
I'd say kind of on what I kind of already hit on is when you're doing your accessory work, pick a load that you want to lift for what you think your rep range is going to be or whatever it's programmed, but go until you feel that velocity breakdown to where like you're going at a certain speed and then you get to a rep and you start to slow down, maybe go one or so more after that, and then you're done. So you're not to failure, even if it's not, it doesn't match the sets exactly, but just try out judging your sets on when your velocity breaks down.
I would say kind of what you were saying, Jerred, is keep your intensity high. This can be, if you hear us say, well, keep some reps in reserve, things like that, it can be kind of tempting to say, okay, well, I don't have to go as hard here because I'm not going all out. I'm not going to failure. But no, what you need is you need to keep the intensity high for the reps that you are doing so that you can actually get the stimulus out of the training that you need to. So it's not just because we're saying keep some reps in reserve. It doesn't mean that we're telling you to be lazy. And we're especially not telling you to be lazy, because if you get lazy, then your form starts to break down as well. And like we said, we don't need form breaking down either. So I would say keep the intensity high, especially if you're focusing on power. Power intensity kind of goes together. If you're not being intense, you're not really working on power. So keep the intensity high, even if you're leaving some reps in reserve.
And just to add a little more to that, like if you're going like max effort type sets, your rest intervals in between sets are going to be a lot higher. But since we're doing reps in reserve, you can back off your rest some to kind of dial in a little bit more intensity as well.
Yeah, that was mine. I mean, it's just pay attention to how you're feeling in the moment. And we're not, like Jerred says all the time, we're not machines. Every day is going to be a little bit different. Follow the program as closely as you can. But if you get to, three of five reps or something like that, and it feels like number four, you're going to have to set it down or you're going to have to compromise, then that's your killing comfort. It's just letting your ego get in the way of actual progress.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I have a video. Maybe we can post it in the show notes where I did a side-by-side video of my max effort deadlift at 500 pounds. I don't remember what the other weight is, somewhere between 520 and 540, I think. And I put them side by side. As soon as the lift starts off the ground, there it's going at the same time, and the 500 just looks god awful. I got it up, it was slow, but then I mean, it was like, I don't know if it was like a year or 2 years later, I did a lot of dynamic effort work, and that's where one man one barbell really like came into play, and like we started programming it a lot more. But I really focused on my speed more than anything else. So now I'm lifting, significantly more weight, and I did it faster. And so and it looked a lot better. You can tell my form was great. I probably could have lifted a little bit more. And that's the difference here when you're focusing on this velocity, which is the ultimate takeaway for their, their study, really, that has everything to do with velocity and how it equates to the same. And so kind of on everyone's point, I think we all have a mixture of the same. You have to focus on how those reps are being done. I think that's kind of what Kyle was talking about, is like, yeah, you can go a little bit less heavy, but you need to focus on the intent and the speed of those repetitions, because just trying less hard is not going to equate to better results. And ultimately, my biggest killing comfort, task for everyone is just live to fight another day. All right. Like, Joe mentioned it. Like if you can rest a little bit longer, or, you have more in the tank for the same training session, or you have more in the tank for the next day, daily over decades is coming into play here. I would rather be able to train every day for longer periods than kill myself today and need, an actual 48 hours of recovery before I can lift again or do something else. I'd like to just be able to lift every day if I can in some capacity. So live to fight another day. Don't worry about being so intense. I know David Goggins says to do that. I know CrossFit says to do that, but we're saying don't do it. And we're talking through science. All right.
Well, I think, just try harder can go one of two ways. You can try really, really hard during a workout, or just try harder could literally be every day putting in some work that is going to move you to, it's your daily over decades. It's like you said, it's just try harder, but it's throughout a long period of time. So I think people get so wrapped around the axle of how intense something needs to be.
Yeah, it's like the whole killing comfort principle. I feel like people miss the point sometimes of like what the comfort is for that individual. If you're accustomed to training really hard every day and killing yourself in the gym, what would be uncomfortable for you would be trying less hard, even though knowing science says you're going to see the same results. That's the comfort that you need to go. It's going to be different for everybody. A lot of people are accustomed to working 12-hour work days and never seeing their family. Okay. Well, killing comfort for you might be backing that down to an 8 or 9 hour workday and actually trying to devote some time to your family. It's not working more. It's not always more and harder to kill comfort. It's what is uncomfortable for you. And that's most likely the area that you need to focus more time.
Right.
All right, let's get into the topic. We have Matt Leiberg, and he says, 1 year garage gym athlete, strength track, loving it. Shout out to Joe. He didn't say that. I did. I work out between 4:45 a.m. and 6 a.m. Typically, I've tried working out fasted, but I kind of collapse about 15 to 20 minutes in. A Scent pre-workout and a UCAN bar or Apple. And no sponsors there except for the Apple. Apple is official sponsor. And I feel energized and can get after it. Problem is, I'm the strongest I've ever been and also still quite fat. I was hoping intermittent fasting might help move the needle, but the morning workouts are an absolute grind when fasted. I started getting 2 to 3 1-hour zone 2 workouts in starting last week and trying to be less of an idiot about my diet. Thank you. So what advice, tips can we provide to Matt? Looks like he overall trying to lose weight, wants to implement intermittent fasting, may or may not be a good strategy for him. But when he does it, it's crushing his workout performance, but he still wants to lose weight. So how can we help Matt out?
So being the strength track master and on strength myself.
Oh, he's master now.
Yes, no, we
I
are.
think we went with the name as Track Masters, but I don't know if we announced it publicly.
Yeah, no. Well, we've been calling VD the Shred Track Master for a long time. So it has been more of a behind the scenes.
Master Shredder.
Track Master. Yeah, well, that too. He's for sure. And also being on strength. I think I've been training fasted for like 2 years now, and I'm just gotten so used to it. But it wasn't always that fact. But you can for sure do, especially strength workouts, because a lot of times, yes, our volume is a bit higher. It's not always high intensity or really, really intense wise. It's going to be a lot more volume based, but you can for sure do it and still get your strength gains. I mean, I just hit a 20-pound back squat PR this year, and I still train fasted all the time. Now, if you're new to fasting, though, I think it's good to start on rest days to actually acclimate to fasting first before doing it on training days. So if you train 4 days a week, then on the weekends or those 3 days, try and do a 14 to 16-hour fast just to get used to it, so that when you're just regularly functioning in your daily life fasted before you try to mix some training with it. So that's one of the main things that to help with the fasted part. I think for energizing for workout, and we just did a study recently on things like that, but honestly, the Ascent pre-workout, you can probably drop. That could be a crash in and of itself, honestly. Not even just like fuel wise, but intermittent fasting could still be fine for. And when you do start that, maybe start those on days that we're just lifting, because there are days where we just lift. We're not doing circuits, weighted carries, or intervals or anything like that. So maybe on just a straight lifting day, it might be good to start with your trying out for an intermittent fasting or something, and then have something ready to go right after. But that's what I would recommend for now. And he's already hitting a bunch of zone 2. I mean, you're fine there. You're actually doing a lot of zone 2, a lot more than average. So that's fine. And then obviously quality of food, but I'm sure somebody else might hit on that anyway. So let's go to Trampus.
Jerred, you don't want to go. You seemed a little sore because I jumped in earlier, too early, or too late, I guess. Last podcast, right? You're
I'm
good.
just to see if all my points get taken, but
Okay.
so far I'm all right.
All right, cool.
I get real freaking scientific here if you guys don't.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna echo Joe just a little bit. You said to do it on rest days. Yeah, there's no real hard and fast rules on when to intermittent fast. I've struggled with this for a long time. Just having a day job, it really is not great for training. Just because the perfect window is whatever 10 to 2, but I mean that's virtually impossible unless you just have a great job and a great some sort of setup there. Yeah, like Kyle, I guess. But I've you could do it on your rest days, and that's what I did for a long time. I would fast on those 2 or 3 days, and that was the only days. And then I would make sure that I had a RX bar or something, not a sponsor, something similar to that before, just because it's quick, it's fast acting, there's a lot of sugar. You can get it in there, and you may feel a little different. But then I eventually just dropped it, and this is kind of a crappy answer, but maybe you just need to struggle for a little while until you get used to it, and or maybe it just doesn't work for you at all. I mean, it's such a personal issue that you got, because we're all just built different. So maybe you should try something like a teaspoon of honey. I mean, I did that before Murph several times, just because it gets in there so fast, and it's really all you need for when you start to lose your glycogen. But eventually, I mean, now it really doesn't matter when I train. I don't eat until 11:30 every day. I have some coffee at some point, but it doesn't matter if I train at 5 or if I train at 5 a.m. or if I train at 5 p.m. I don't eat until 11:30, and I've gotten used to that. And it may even been a mental thing at the beginning. The more you learn about it, the more you realize that generally for an hour workout, there's enough carbohydrate in your body to fuel you. So it may just be a test of your patience. That's really all I got. Kyle, got anything to add?
Trampus just told you to suck it up for a very long period of time.
Yeah. Trampus just said try harder.
That's what he said. Try a little more.
Yeah. I'm just gonna be selfish, and I'm just gonna say, Matt, you need to come join Concurrent Training Elite. That's what you need to do. You're already one of our GGAs. You seem to already have, because you said, I need to quit being an idiot about my diet. Like, you already know, food quality, sleep quality. You listen to all the things. It sounds to me like what you need is a little bit more accountability. Just somebody kind of helping you stick to the small habits that you need to get you over the hump, because you've already made some great strength gains and you already know all the things, but you just need to dial in a little bit more. There's a bunch of questions that I would ask you if we were on a coaching call, just about talking about the elements, talking about what the rest of your diet looks like during the day, all those kinds of things, talking about adapting to fasting, like what Trampus was saying. And so those are things that I would cover with you in Concurrent Training Elite. Those are things that we talk about all the time in our coaching group. So I would just say, get in the coaching group. That's what I would say. Because I like Joe and like Trampus, I've done intermittent fasting for a long, long time. And when I was an athlete and I was in coaching with Jerred, that's one of the things that I did, but there were other habits that I had to implement as well over time. But I lost I lost quite a bit of weight doing intermittent fasting, but also doing the other small habits that we were talking about as well. So, and it took some time. So, and I made the strength gains and lost the weight, all that kind of stuff. And so there's a lot of things that we could talk about. A lot of things I could talk about right now and take a bunch of time on the podcast, but I would just say, come join Concurrent Training Elite, and we can talk about all that kind of stuff and build some better habits.
Awesome. So I just want to say to Matt that I get that you want to lose weight, but fasting may not be the cure-all here. It's not, Kyle just kind of hit on that. It's not like the thing that's going to push you over the edge. So if you have to abandon it because your workouts suck, that's fine. But if you do that, you need to focus all of your attention on total average calories over a week time period. And that's what I would like to see more so. We've talked about this before, more so than a day, more so than a 48-hour period. What is your total calorie intake averaged out over a 7-day time period, and see if that's less than the amount of calories that you should be eating. And if you're not sure how many calories you should be eating, go work with Kyle. As we said, it's very inexpensive coaching. It's a steal. We might even 10x the price soon.
Get in while you can.
Kyle laughs, but I'm thinking about we might just do that. So you guys want to get in before the price goes up 10x, you should absolutely do that. So if you abandon it because your workouts suck, again, focus on total average weekly calories. I do think that you will grow accustomed to it, as Trampus has kind of stated, everyone's kind of stated, is I'd like to know how long have you been doing it? Because I think you might end up being fine. You have enough stored carbohydrate to power through a strength workout in the morning. So some of this could be mental. I know that I had some legitimate blood sugar regulation issues. I don't even know what they were, but fasting cleared all of that up for me. And the fact that you did state in your question that you're overweight, you could very well have some very minor blood sugar regulation issues. And so fasting could help with those things. I was also going to suggest, if you want to implement fasting, maybe just try the occasional 24-hour fast. Because the thing about fasting, the main benefit that we know is that it typically forces people to restrict calories because they just don't eat as much because their eating window is shorter. That's like the answer. Now there are some more like autophagy and like all these other things, but to be honest, science doesn't really know when those things happen that I've seen yet. They don't know if it's at the 16-hour mark, 48-hour mark, 72-hour mark. We don't actually really know where most of the deep scientific benefits the bloggers and Instagrammers out there are claiming it has. We don't know when those things actually happen from a scientific standpoint in human models. We only know in like mice, and we don't know how to extrapolate that to humans. So an occasional 24-hour fast, maybe once a week or once a month to get started, could be really helpful. Now, going back to kind of blood sugar regulation and everything else, you said you're throwing in zone 2. I'd love to see a lot more zone 2 in your training, because what zone 2 is doing is it's helping your body better utilize fuel. And that's the main thing that you should take away from the zone 2 training, is it's helping you oxidize fat and not be a sugar burner the second you start exercising, which happens to a lot of people who aren't accustomed to proper training and programming. I mean, you've been around for a year, so I don't know how much zone 2 you've done, but I would do even more than you have been. Throw it in as much as you can until you kind of get this under control, because once your body is burning the proper types of fuel, you should be able to handle that fast and be fine. But if you absolutely can't get through the workout, I would just say drop the fast, eat the minimum amount of calories needed to power through that workout, and then you can wait a little bit longer. Like if you just need that UCAN bar, I'm with Joe. Drop the pre-workout. If you're going to do any sort of pre-workout, drink a cup of coffee, get rid of the pre-workout, have the UCAN bar or half a UCAN bar. See what you can get away with. If a UCAN bar is like, or an apple is like what you need, can you eat half an apple and still power through that workout? What's the minimum effective dose there? And only do that. So those are kind of all of my points of how to get through that. But I do ultimately agree with Trampus. Like, just try and push it out and see how long it takes for your body to acclimate and be okay with it. All
Be
good.
smart.
Anything else?
No. Cool.
All right. Workout time. Who's got the workout?
Oh, bother.
Do it.
All right. Patriot.
Oh, that's a good
Workout is Patriot. It's named Patriot because a Patriot gave us the workout.
New England
And
Patriot.
by Patriot,
Yeah,
I mean
not-
a former New England Patriot. Tim and Yali was on the Better Humanology podcast a long time ago. And this is
The
one
only
of his
New England
favorite
Patriot I
workouts.
like.
One of his go-to workouts. And it's really, really simple, which we like around here. 4 time, 100 clean and jerks and 100 pull-ups. There you go. That's it.
Time cap 30 minutes, right?
That
Yep.
is not listed on the description.
Well, it's
What?
that, and then afterwards there's a 62 calorie Aerodyno row, something like that, because his number was 62, I believe.
Right. So you got the clean and jerks, and then it's briefed but not mandatory that there is a 62 calorie row challenge at the end of the 30-minute time cap. Just so for any, I don't think a lot of people do that though. I don't think people take on that part of the challenge because the workout's hard enough as is. So what tips, tricks, and secrets or challenges do we have for this workout? Preferably secrets.
Man. Well, first secret is speaking of fasting, probably don't do this one fasted because it's intense. You need a little, have a little bit of liquid IV, shot of OJ, whatever. But yeah, whenever I tackle this one, I mean, just because I always have a my reps plotted out, so I'll do 10-10 back and forth, and these clean and jerks aren't squat clean, so they're just regular power clean and jerks, just basically ground to overhead, but not snatch. So clean and jerk, yeah. Anyway, and then pull-ups, I believe, can be kipping as well, but if you're not doing 10 15 strict pull-ups, then you shouldn't be kipping pull-ups. Yeah, I would just say break down do your rep scheme how you think would be best. So I think 10 and 10 works best because 5 and 5 is a bit too much transition time, and stick to that for the entire way.
Yeah, I think my tips are going to be very similar to clean breathing, and that's make sure you know how to clean. Don't do 100 at 135 if you're muscling every single one of them up, because that will wreck you for much longer than a day or two.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just sort of have a plan going into it, like Joe said, and I mean, just make sure you know how to do the movement properly and grit it out. There's only a few that are simpler than this one, but I don't know if there's any that are easier, or harder. I don't know. A lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and those are all my tips as well. Partition as needed. Focus on your form with your cleans, which is what we've been talking about the whole time today. Obviously, bring that intensity. It's a meet yourself Saturday. This isn't an excuse to just kind of go slow and take it easy for the day, but it is an opportunity to focus on intentional movement and proper movement, and just do it the right way. And in order to really focus on your form, power cleans, I think you should choose your weight carefully. If you can't do 100 clean and jerks at 135, don't put 135 on the bar. Like, put a different weight on the bar, and just do it correctly. And just like with clean breathing, remember to breathe. If you don't breathe, you die. So remember to breathe through it properly.
I think a litmus test for the weight would be if you can do 10 of those unbroken without setting the bar down, then you should be fine because you can rest in between. Not that you need to do them all unbroken, because typically when I do my reps, I'll do the rep and I'll just let the bar drop. But if you can't do X weight unbroken with good form the entire time, like great form, then you shouldn't be doing that weight for 100.
No tips. Just do it. Suck less, try
Head
harder.
through wall.
It is a difficult one. I think I'll just echo what everyone else has said. I think weight selection is the biggest thing here, because if you pick the wrong weight, it's stupid. You're going to hurt yourself. This isn't like one of those. It's not a movement like a burpee where it just kind of sucks, but ultimately you're just a complainer. This one is, painful, and it can hurt you if you do it wrong, especially 100 times. So don't select anything too heavy. Break it up. Joe said even intervals. I say do like a reverse pyramid, like reverse splits. I don't know what you call that in lifting. So go either start small and get larger, or go larger and get smaller, and whichever one feels less daunting to you. So if you can start with like 20 and 20, do 20 and 20 or 15, 15. Take it to the limit that first set, and then try and ease your way down through the rest of the workout.
And keep a whiteboard handy to keep track of your numbers.
Yeah.
It's 100. It's not that hard. Like,
math is still required.
Yeah, but you could just count. You're like, I did 20. And so when you step back to the bar, it's 21, 22, 23. Same for pull-ups. You're only memorizing 2 numbers. I mean, okay. We have now officially jumped to my challenge of the workout. Don't use anything to count your repetitions. And if you lose count, start over. Is that okay?
That's awful.
Train yourself to be better at math.
That's awful.
Wasn't that in the Garage Gym Athlete group somewhere recently? Someone's like, I can't keep track or something. That was my response. No one liked it. I was like,
Shocker.
No one liked that advice.
Just start over. If you lose count, start over. All right. Joe, you made me think of something I wanted to ask everyone on the team real fast. When you're doing something like a clean, do you gentlemen drop the weight on the ground, or do you always set it down like it's a small child?
I drop it like it's hot.
Drop it like it's hot. Okay.
I would say it depends on the workout, but I think for this one, I would take it all the way to the ground, just because I don't want to. I'm going to be working out in my basement, and I might be waking people up if I'm dropping it over and over and over again. But also, it depends on what weight you're doing with this. Like if you're somebody who's only doing 65 with the bar and you've only got 10s on there, like that bar is going to jump all over the place. I mean, if you're doing 135 and you got 45-pound bumpers on there, it's pretty much going to stay in place when it hits. But you don't want to drop the bar and it be jumping around and hitting you and stuff like that. So, but I would be taking it all the way to the ground. That's just what I would do.
So you drop after every rep, Joe, or at the end of your no?
Every rep.
I would kill myself.
I clean, and on that dip, on that catch on the clean, it goes straight overhead as like a push press or a jerk. Then once it's locked that overhead, drops, clang clang, pick up, go again.
I mean, I guess you're saving some energy, but I'm not coordinated enough to do that.
He goes
100%. That's exactly what you're doing. You're definitely saving energy.
Saving my back. Yeah.
I'm not. Well, I mean, if you if I drop it, I'm probably going to hit myself, and that's going to expend a lot more energy later on. Than
gravity is faster than I am.
But also, my space is not huge. Maybe if I was in a wide open space, I have like a 3 or 4 foot area that I'm cleaning in. I'm trying to keep the bar there. So maybe I move my wife's car out of the other side and do it on the concrete. I don't know. But
in San Diego, Liz and I only had 2 of those horse stall mats. How were they? Like 3x6. Mm-hmm. We each had our own mat, and that's what we.
Well, I'm worried about hitting other things too.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. You were still a little more wide open than what I had. But what do you do?
What's your answer, Jerred?
Yeah, I never drop weight anymore ever under any circumstance, and it was never an intentional decision. But when Joe just mentioned that, it made me realize, like, I used to be a weight dropper and now I don't drop weight, but there was never like, you know what, I need to stop dropping the weight. It just kind of like slowly, I don't know if it was like kids naps or like what happened to like, I never, not even like on a deadlift now, like everything gets lowered to the ground slowly. And in this case, Joe has some good points. yeah, if you take that down to the ground, there's just that entire part of the movement that's going to tax you a little bit more. I would say it is slower though, not faster. I think if we did this workout side by side, I could probably fit in 2 reps to your 1 if you're dropping it, having to reset every time.
Yep.
It's not because I'm dropping it. Let's be honest. It's not the reason why you're going faster than me.
Okay, if I just did the same workout twice, I just think that
If I were to time myself doing 10 reps, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, having to reset your grip every time, I think is would take a little bit longer, but that's interesting. Interesting strategy. All right, I think that's it. Anything else, gentlemen?
No.
Krampus,
Oh.
welcome back. Made it to
Keep
the
coming
end.
back. I'm going to keep coming back until I'm told politely to leave.
We're keeping the listeners guessing. Like they have no idea who they're going to be listening to each day, each podcast.
My favorite comment was when I introduced Trampus to the in the Facebook group. I was like, "Hey, he's part of the team," and then someone was like, "I had no idea he was not already part of the team," which was awesome.
He's just kind of like a fungus. He just kind of grew on us.
Yeah.
What?
Parasite.
Get it?
Parasite.
All right. Well, if you are still listening and you are not one of our athletes, congratulations. You absolutely should be. Go to garagegymathlete.com and sign up for a 14-day free trial. For all of our athletes out there listening, thank you for being part of the training. You are awesome. You make the community what it is. And now you have an excuse to try hard, but not try so hard in training and still see the results that you want to see. And we will program this in our programming, and you will be better for it. But that's all I have for this one. For your weekly reminder, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you. To the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.